Hi, I'm the Warrior Witch, and you can call me Nike. Today we're going to be talking about altars. So first, what is an altar? In short, an altar is your witchy space, and it can be any shape, any size, any location. It's really just what works for what you need it for. The classic altar you'll see is going to be fairly large, maybe the size of a desk, and can hold a variety of things both on it and in it. For some people, like myself, it's a little bit more like a cabinet, where the space below it holds all of your witchy items, and the space on top is your actual working space. For some people, they have bigger spaces. For some, it's a whole room that is their witchy space or their witchy altar. For some people, it's even their whole backyard. You can have it be a basic witchy space for yourself, or what I've also seen is altars dedicated to a deity or a certain intent. So you could have one for Aphrodite or Apollo or Freya. You could have one for self-love or for luck. Part of the purpose of an altar is also to get you into the witchy mindset so that you have a place where when you stand in that location, you know this is witch time, over there is normal time. There are suggestions online that if you can, you shouldn't keep it in your bedroom. I only have my bedroom where I am right now, so I keep it in there, but the suggestion is also to either cover it up or put it away when you are done to also add that extra element of separation. That separation can be important just the way that some people will wear certain clothes when they're doing their witchy work, or they will use a witch name for their witchy work. It gives you that separation to let your entire system click into the magic of it. For some people though, a big altar isn't really a feasible option. I know that when I was first out on my own, my altar was a nightstand from Walmart. For still others who may have even less space, a great option is a travel altar. You'll see these online a lot, and they can be really, really small, compact, and it really makes you think about what do you actually need for any of your witchy workings, what do you actually use the most, and what's going to be the most helpful. For regular sized altars or bigger spaces, you'll have a lot more options because you'll have a lot more space. But the classic things that you'll run into are things like athames, incense holders, candles, and candle holders, because you want to be safe with your fire, containers for moon water, deity statues, plants, seashells, crystals, and stones of any form. They can be both special ones like rose quartz and selenite, or even just river stones that you found near your house. Any active workings, I personally have a money bowl on mine, salt or a cleansing space, and possibly any offerings that you want to put out if you happen to work with any deities or spirits. Obviously, an altar is not going to be available for everyone, or at least not a big one, so there are lots of great options for broom-closeted witches, and the big thing is going to be about travel altars. A lot of things that go into a travel altar are going to end up being sort of more discreet and things that you can keep for yourself without it being really obvious. So you could still have a nightstand or a desk where you have all your special things, but you could just say it's cool things that you picked up. So broom-closeted witches pay close attention to the travel altar options. Some travel altars will be in things like Altoids tins or the containers that you can get for cards sometimes. They can be in little bags. They can really be anything if you're creative enough. And speaking of broom-closeted witches, you don't have to have a real physical altar with a bunch of stuff on it in order for it to work for you. I know that I've seen shoeboxes, Altoids tins, like I mentioned before, and even paper altars where you draw out your altar space on a piece of paper with things that you want to represent the elements, maybe some tools, and you could even have smaller tools that you would then bring out to set on top of your paper altar. Here's some things to think about for travel altars. In mine, I have an incense stick that I burned down to fit inside the container, so instead of it being this long, or however long they end up, it was more like this long. You can include tea lights, chime candles, and yes, I do mean this seriously, birthday candles. Birthday candles are a great option if you need something that is small, will burn fast, and it is a little bit more discreet because you can pick it up literally at the grocery store. You can grab things that you find out in nature like river stones, any small feathers you might find on the ground, jars of dirt even. There's little small jars that you can buy in the jewelry section of any craft stores that are great for these kinds of things. Very small, and you can keep them anywhere. You can include small bits of thread and yarn if you want to do a little bit more with knotwork or binding, and in this case it would be great also to buy one of those $1 pocket sewing kits. In addition to that, small scraps of fabric. You can get this from old t-shirts. You can get scraps of fabric from the fabric store and cut them down to size as you need, and that can be really cheap. Back to the small containers, it can be things like salt and pepper, and with that, if you're looking for it to be even flatter or even more discreet, you can pick up the little tiny salt and pepper packets that are in the paper that you can get from restaurants and things like that. Those are great to put in. They're low profile, both in physical profile of being small and low profile as in discreet. In mine, I have a cinnamon stick because I like to use cinnamon in my craft. If you don't have a lot of room for cleansing materials, you could go to the craft section, again, and get little jingle bells. So you could use these bells for a smaller, more compact version of sound cleansing. I like to include small bits of paper so that I can write out any sigils, any notes, if I need to write out the words or if I need to write a petition. And I tend to carry pencils and pens with me anyway, so those don't need to be included directly in the kit, but because I know that I always have access to those, I will bring along the paper with me. If you have any symbols or items related to your deity, including maybe a certain crystal or stone, maybe a feather, or any small herbs that you could bring along with you, those would be a great thing to include as well, especially if it is meant to be specifically a deity altar. The last two things I will give a word of caution for. If you're going to the craft store to get those little bottles for any of your small herbs or things, they're great for dry goods like herbs, but they usually come with cork tops, meaning that if you put any form of liquid in them, the liquid will eventually evaporate or leak out. So if you're going to carry anything like moon water or oils, you want to make sure that it is a completely sealable container for it. They do sell small ones like that. They're just a little bit harder to find because the cork bottle tops are really in right now. Things to do with your altar. For me, I like to do my tarot readings there when I can. I use it as a space for my regular spell work. If I want to speak to any of my deities, I speak to them there when I can, although it's not exclusively there. I'll speak to them anywhere too. I always light my incense and my candles there, aside from the candles in the background here, so don't mind those. But especially if I'm doing any candle spells, that is where I put them, exclusively. I try not to do much spell work on the road if I can. I try to save it for if it's really important, I'll do it at my altar. But the reason for travel altars is I do have a small kit I can use for on the go if I do have a need for a spell at any moment. Inside my altar, I keep all of my spell supplies. This means all my crystals, all my stones, all of my oils, all of my candles. I have a lot of tea lights, so it is a very convenient place to put all of those because it can get messy very quickly. All of my herbs, all of my incense, everything I need is in that space. I also keep things like my tarot cards. I have seashells in there, which I will use with Aphrodite. Believe it or not, this whole corner is shells. Yes, even those boxes. And on top of all of that, I have a bunch of empty jars waiting to be filled with anything I need, either for jar spells or to fill them with herbs or stones or what have you. I want to share with you now my personal travel altar. I keep it in my favorite tarot bag, which is with my Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It looks like this. It's somewhat bulky. It's more than just a deck, which is maybe half of the space. And inside I also have a notebook for keeping any notes, either about my tarot spreads or anything that I find out in the world. And this is my travel altar. It is in the container that originally held a necklace that I got for my brother, and I kept the container because I thought it was kind of nice and useful, and it wasn't until maybe 2 or 3 years later that I finally found a purpose for it, which was for this. Inside I have some pieces of paper for, like I said, any workings. I have my tea light and my chime candle. I have a piece of mica, which is this stone here. I have pepper and salt, a special divination herb blend. I have rose petals, rosemary, my quartz crystal necklace, my little tiger totem for luck, bay leaves, a cinnamon stick, this piece of a hematite ring that broke. I put one of the pieces inside my altar, one of the pieces is in my protective charm, which I showed in the last video, and one piece is in here. And a little tiny feather that I found outside. I made sure it was clean and then stuck it inside. This is my travel altar and it works for my specific needs, but remember that your altar doesn't have to look like mine. Some people will include rune tiles or little stones with the elements painted on them, if that's what they like to work with. Some people will have things related to the Fae. It can really be anything. It's really about what your craft uses, what you think you need the most, what you'll work with the most, and what will suit your purposes. I don't have a small piece of selenite to put in there, but some other people might, and that might be the thing that they like to use. Like I said, some people could include little bells to keep for sound cleansing. I don't. So it really is up to your preference and your needs. All right, that's it for me today. So blessed be, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!